Yes.
What prevents the cheese from sticking together when it's like shredded cheese in the bag? Like what prevents it from sticking together?
So the question was, what prevents the cheddar cheese from sticking together? I think it's called powdered cellulose. Cause I had cooked some shepherd's pie and I had some shredded cheese and that kind of package. But it's called powdered cellulose. It's a plant fibrous. It's a fibrous plant, and when you wax it on the cheese, it prevents water. It prevents the cheese from sticking together. It repels water.
I'll jump in there. How does rennet work?
Rennet.
Rennet breaks down the protein structures in the milk. It denatures them because they're in a tertiary structure, and they break them down because the chromatin is a protease that breaks down those long protein chains.
Okay. I think.
Yeah, I would like to add on. Rennet also lowers the pH, and it helps provide a better senioritis for the product to promote food safety food product.
Heinz, so along that line, you mentioned that the acidity should be 0.2%
Yes, ma'am.
before you add your rennet.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
do you measure acidity as 0.2%?
0.2%.
How would you measure? If you were the food process engineer and you had to make sure before you add it during your process flow, how do you measure 0.2% acid?
I will use a pH meter, and I'll take a sample of the product.
And what numbers would the pH meter give you? In percent? What is pH range? What is the pH range? What do you mean by an acid pH?
I know what you're saying. I have to get back with you on that question.
You don't have to get back with me on that. What's the pH range? Any of you?
For acids?
Well, up there.
Well, I think he worded it wrong. It has to be lowered by 2.2% because the rennet has to have an acidic environment so it can do what it needs to.
What is an acid environment? If you were supposed to measure it using a pH meter, what do you define as an acidic environment? Or an acidic pH?
As far as milk is concerned, an acidic environment will be somewhere under about 4.5 or lower.
I hear a lot of bad things about soft cheese. What is soft cheese and why is it bad?
Well, most soft cheeses aren't ripened. And depending on whether it's made with pasteurized or unpasteurized milk, could increase its ability to form microbes later on. And depending on like nutrition wise, I know it has less calcium than ripened cheese, depending on what type of coagulation that you use for it.
So are there some people that shouldn't eat soft cheese?
Old people, young people.
Start talking to the old people. Let me get my walker and I'll get up here.
Because you know they have weak immune systems.
Okay.
And kind of along those lines, as it relates to the salt, right? You hear a lot of talk about lowering the salt, right? And we think of that in terms of the health benefit, it's a really good thing. But from the microbial stand, looking at, say, for example, staphylococcus. So how would the level of salt in cheese affect the growth of staphylococcus? Based on what you know about staph, as it relates to salt, what effect would it have on the microbial quality of the cheese as it relates to staph? hallmark characteristics of staff?
I know it can't grow in high salt environments.
It can or it can't?
It can.
Okay.
So, depending on the salt level, because it depends on the company. So I guess it depends on how the company treats their product, if it's high in salt. But at the same time, based on the heating, if they process it properly, it shouldn't be an issue later on,
Okay, so if you
depending on how
lower,
the product is handled.
okay, so if you lower the salt level, right? If a consumer is desiring a low sodium cheese product, okay, would that, how would that affect the ability of Staphylococcus to grow? If you lower the salt, would it increase or decrease the probability?
I'd say decrease the possibility, but at the same time, I guess you'll have to worry about other microbes at that point. if
Okay,
you lower it.
listen to the question. You know the answer because the front part of your response gave the answer. Okay, so if you decrease the salt level, would that increase or decrease the ability of staph to grow? You said staph can grow in high salt content environments. Okay, so would it increase or decrease?
It'll decrease it.
It will
I'll say a decrease or
Increase or
increase,
decrease?
increase,
increase?
yes.
Are there any microorganisms that are added
Are there any microbes that are added? I know lactobacillus is not really used for, it's to produce acidity, but it's used in the product as a means of preventing bitterness in the end product. So it's added in the beginning, right before the other starter culture, so it can help prevent bitterness after they're ripening.
What is a curd and how is it formed?
The curd is the casein protein and the fat content of the milk, and it is formed when the proteins are denatured by the rennet. So they're going to coagulate and come together because once the casein is broke down, it repels the water, so they're able to come together. But as long as the water is still present, it won't be able to coagulate together because the caseins can naturally coagulate together, but you need that water not present so they can coagulate.
You did chemistry of coagulation. What is coagulation?
Coagulation is the formation of the micelles just coming together.
And what is required for that coagulation to occur?
The breakdown of the protein structures by denaturing the proteins.
What do you mean by denaturing?
By
Let me help you out. What is isolactic point? Yeah.
When the PI stands for isolation point, is when it reaches, I have a net charge of 0. And why? Because the protein cannot stay in solution when that net charge, when it reaches the PI.
Why? Why?
Patricia mentioned that, for pasteurization, low temperature, I think it was low temperature a long time. And Heinz, you mentioned about high temperature sometime. So what is the implication of the two?
Mine's deal with pasteurization.
But is you want the same presentation?
No, hers deal with the raw.
Well, mine was with the research as far as the process flow chart that we use for our presentation. they dealt with high temperature short time, but
Why
when
do you use-
I did
why
my
do you use
research,
different flow charts?
the research people used the low
Yeah, but okay, based on that, can you discuss what is the implication of the two? So since all of you are knowledgeable on these different, processes of the
Well,
So can you repeat the question?
so you're asking why is it two different types of temperatures and time
He
periods?
uses low temperature long time pasteurization method, is it?
Yes.
Okay, you will use a heat exchanger using high temperature short time, is it?
Yes, sir.
So what's the implication of the two on the quality of
What's the quality for quality? I think it kind of like balances it out, right? Because you have high temperature, short time versus long temperature, long time. So you processing at lower temperature but for a long time. And for high temperature, short time, you processing at high temperature for a short amount of time. So I still think they have the same quality.
What is UHT?
Ultra high temperature.
What is that?
When it's kind of like flash heating up. Flash, ultra high. They kind of like flash pasteurization.
So why would you use that? Dr. Kazama asked about low temperature, long time, high temperature, short time, UHT. Why would you use one versus another?
Why would I?
Sure.
It just all depends on your method, on your product, on your process flow, of your outline, of your hassle plan. But for ultra high temperature, you don't want to use that because I think it'll burn the product. Because it's at a very high temperature. I think
Well, from my research about pasteurization, it did mention ultra pasteurization for milk, and it said that when you ultra pasteurize milk, it helps preserve it for longer because more of the microbes have been destroyed that could potentially be harmful later on, and it increased its shelf life to where it could be stored at room temperature for about 2 to 3 weeks.
How many load reduction is usually required for pasteurization?
Can you speak loudly?
How many load reduction is usually required, the FDA required for the pasteurization?
What was the question again?
How many load reduction the FDA required for the pasteurization?
so she asked how many log reduction that the FDA required for
Pasteurization.
pasteurization. I say 1 log reduction.
Are you guessing now or what?
Yes, he is. He most definitely can answer that.
Well, that goes back to the D value, and the reason why you pasteurize at its temperature, because you're trying to reduce the amount of organisms to at least one log, so that to reduce the amount of growth.
What is low reduction? Because it's always important to understand the question or be able to answer it sensibly. So if you don't understand it, then it becomes difficult to answer it.
What was the question?
What is log reduction?
Log reduction is basically reducing the amount of colony-forming units, and by reducing them, you reduce the amount of organisms present.
For example, let's
which is
say
like the D value.
you only need one low reduction for safety.
You're trying to get it to where it's you're trying to reduce it to where it's no more than 1 log present.
All right, I want to change the topic and ask about CIP. What is CIP and is it used in the cheese industry?
CIP is clean in place, and I believe they do have some equipment that you will be able to clean in place,
Such as?
such as the different heat exchangers, and yeah, the pasteurizing equipment.
So what problems do they encounter with going through and using CIP for the heat exchangers?
I say not sanitizing it properly. Even though they clean in place, they might miss some steps, miss some parts of the machine. My guess is.
I don't know if you guys mentioned, what's the difference between mild, sharp, medium, cheddar cheese?
So the question was, what's the difference between mild and sharp and cheddar cheese?
The difference is the amount of ripening time. For mild cheese, you have a minimal ripening time of 60 days. For medium cheese, you have 3 to 6 months. For sharp, you have a minimum of 9 months, and for extra sharp, you have a minimum of 15 months.
What is right?
Yeah, there you go.
It is the aging of the cheese. When you let it set and pretty much grow, set and lose moisture over a period of time.
And what happens during the ripening process?
So the question was, what happens during the ripening process? During the ripening process, you give cheese time to fully mature and ripen. So, far as the color of the cheese and like the quality of the cheese, like during the before ripening, I think you don't get that. You want to get the quality of the cheese, the color, the right texture, and for the microorganisms to get a chance to set and grow.
You're missing an important factor. What's the difference? Dr. Wooten asked you about mild, medium, sharp. So what's the critical factor when you taste the mild? I gave you the answer. Flavor, right?
Yeah.
During the ripening process, one of the critical factors there is flavor because of all the breakdown of your compounds that are formed from protein, carbohydrates, and fat.
What do you measure, what is the measure or an indicator that this is mild? What is the measure? Mild, sharp, what is the indicator?
What is the indicator?
Yeah.
From the research that I did, the indicator was basically the amount of time that it is ripened. And that could range from anywhere from 60 days to 15 months or beyond.
If you were quality chemists working with them, what do you measure other than time?
You'll measure the,
You would measure the color, the texture, and overall the taste, because that would be a big determinant of that.
Flavor?
Yes.
And you can run all those using GC, or that is how they do gas photography. They test all the volatile compounds that come out of cheese during the ripening process.
Yes.
And then they have a limit to set.
What's the question?
Never, I think, yeah.
Lactase.
And also, work I'm doing it, and this is my last announcement. I'm not running after anybody to send me a PowerPoint. If you don't see it on your grade, then, you know, you blame yourself. Okay?
And also, if you haven't signed in, or several who haven't, please do so.